Well, thank you, and it's nice to be here. Before I forget, I want to thank Porto Novelli for helping put this thing on. That's their job, and this is a panel about jobs. Two experts in the area, not only of jobs and of talent, Sjoerd and Casey. I'm not going to try your last names. We'll be informal here. It's late afternoon. Casey, you're a representative of the sharing economy. We heard from Annenberg that the new generation is different, that they want to do good. This is supposed to be an event about tech for the good. Is that right? Is there a connection between the so-called sharing economy, the gig economy, the world that Airbnb is part of, and this new generation? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely. I would say our 60% of our users are millennials, and millennials and Generation Z, the generation coming after them. And I think though our platform is growing in popularity among other populations, it really is that this new generation that is familiar with technology, that is used to using it, that really sort of got our platform up and running. So certainly there's a lot of enthusiasm there. And I think as we think about the future of jobs in millennials and Generation Z, there is a real connection and an interest in in using the sharing economy to sort of further a mission. And I think a lot of what attracts job applicants to Airbnb directly is sort of our mission, which is to create a world where anyone can belong anywhere. And that is a mission that that drives our product, which is about connecting people around the world with people and experiences, and it drives our employee culture in how we approach hiring and diversity and belonging at our company, and it also is how we approach our engagement with the world, both through our leaders and our employees and some of the social impact work that we do at Airbnb, and also through our host and guest community. And one of the great things about the sharing economy is, at least for us, is that the ability you have to have an impact is not just limited to your own company and your own employees, but this network around the world. We have 4 million listings on our platform right now, and that's I think we're in 65,000 cities, 192 countries. So that's a broad network of people that are passionate about belonging anywhere. So it's a really great asset.
When you listen to some of the senior people at Airbnb over the years, sometimes you've got the impression that the renting out of a room in a house is thought of as a hobby. But do you think of it as a job or a piece of a job?
I mean, it is true that for most of our hosts, it's something that they do part-time. So the average host in the US rents out their home, actually the average host everywhere rents out their home about 42 days a year. The majority of our hosts are renting out their own home, renting out 42 days a year. The average income for a host in the US is about $6,000 a year. So it is not, for home hosts, it is not often a primary source of income, but what it can be is a real platform. The majority of our hosts say that they use their income that they make on Airbnb to help make ends meet, to help stay in their home. But we're also seeing increasingly, especially with the millennial generation, a lot of people using that cushion to have the freedom to start some entrepreneurial ventures, to kind of make for themselves a new way of working. So that's something that's been a real boom.
Sjoerd, you're the head of talent at J&J, a very, very interesting job, very interesting company. What do you see as the relationship between, I know this is a big question, you're going to have to answer it relatively briefly, the relationship between talent and new technology, particularly the kind of P2P sharing technology that companies like Airbnb operate on? Is it changing the nature of talent, or is it chicken and egg? Is it the cause or the effect of our brave new world?
Yeah, it has a huge impact, certainly for the way we hire and retain talent at the company. If you start to think about the use of AI in recruiting, we use AI for making job descriptions better. We match opportunities to people continuously. We try to match better training programs to facilitate the target companies that people go into. When I then start to think about kind of the way we retain people from an employee experience perspective, it continuously touches with the impact that the company makes on the world. It's J&J is the world's largest and most diverse healthcare company. Our products touch 1 billion people every single day. Millennials are looking for mission-driven companies these days. I often call J&J the one of the first mission-driven companies around. Like, we've been around for 130 years. If you want to make an impact on the future of healthcare, addressing huge medical unmet needs around the world, J&J is the company to be at.
So you're saying that the millennials have a particular affection, commitment intellectually and emotionally towards the notion of impact investing or impact action?
Impact's incredibly important. Like, every single interviewer would get the question from a candidate around, make my impact in this particular job as tangibly as you can. And so what we're very focused on is how do we, even at lower areas in the organization, how do we make impact super tangible, the impact that we have on our patients and our consumers around the world, our trajectory to curing certain disease states, the need for impact, the desire to have impact is incredibly high.
How many boomers are here in the room, like me? Not many. Most of you are young. It's making me as a boomer feel really bad. Are you suggesting that we didn't care, that we were just in it for the money and these young kids now care? I mean, what was the impact of, again, to punish thing in the late afternoon, what was the impact of impact on the generational thing? Were the boomers just not into this stuff? Were they taking too many drugs? What was the problem?
I think it's a multi-generational component. I mean, we fill roughly 28,000 jobs at the company. We get about 1 million applicants a year. Regardless of generation, regardless of region or area of the business, everyone's looking to make impact. And I think if you're in healthcare, you have to care about the impact you have on the world.
Casey, this impact thing is, of course, very heartwarming, makes us all feel extremely good and virtuous. But the reality is, at least in the Silicon Valley economy, that we have companies becoming incredibly wealthy, tiny amounts of wealth being controlled by, few technologists and founders. Jeff Bezos now is not only the wealthiest man in the world, but the wealthiest man in the history of the world. We know the story of Uber, and the people who started Airbnb are never going to miss a meal. What's going on here? Increasing inequality, increasing perhaps injustice in terms of Silicon Valley's relationship with the rest of the world, and yet this increasing sort of passion towards social investing. Is there a contradiction there?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think that our founders would say they believe strongly that, those like themselves who do well have a responsibility both to give back themselves, but also to make sure that their companies are having a positive impact and figuring out how to do that. So I think, our founders approach it in a few ways. One is that I would point out that a lot of these technologies are actually enabling people to make money. So on our platform, hosts keep 97% of the listing price. So if you rent your room out for $100 a night, you keep 97 of those dollars. So that is real money going back into the community in a way that wasn't possible before. We're really democratizing some of these industries.
And yet there are some communities, Barcelona, for example, that are less than comfortable with Airbnb. Mm-hmm. How would you square that circle?
Sure. I mean, home sharing itself is something that's been around since the beginning of time, but obviously not at the scale that technology has enabled. And so it is a new thing, and it's growing fast. And we're in 65,000 cities around the world. Short-term rental regulations are usually done at the local level. And so this is a new thing for cities, and we understand that. And so our approach has been, to embrace that conversation and to try and work with cities on what their individual needs are. And it really does vary. I mean, Barcelona is a situation where, They have a lot of tourism, they need tourism and depend on it, but they're worried about over-tourism, and they're worried about how to manage the inflow of people. And so working with them to try and figure out what's the best way to enable healthy tourism in their city is what they're concerned about. Another city might want more tourism and want to figure out how to attract more people to their city, and that's a different challenge. And so we're willing to sort of tailor our approach. But I would say the principles that drive our engagement are really find out what works for the city, be willing to find a new path, and we hope that they are too, because this is something that's new, that hasn't happened before.
Sure, you refer to J&J as the original impact company, whether, that's obviously debatable, but you've been around a long time, almost, 200 years. These Silicon Valley companies are very new, especially in comparison with J&J. You've been through the cycles, the booms and the busts, the crisis of ethics, the challenges, the pushbacks. What advice would you give to the Bezoses and the Larry Pages of the world? What should they be doing in terms of transforming their companies into more responsible participants in society?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can give those guys, advice. I think we learn from each other in the ecosystem. I think,
can, if you want.
I think what's always held J&J's kind of steady course is our credo. And I think a lot of companies have a list of corporate values, on their walls. The credo is something that's been around for almost 75 years for the company. It grounds the decision-making of the company around the world. It's a real thing. I joined J&J almost 3 years ago, and I was I had a little skepticism around the credo. But when you join the company, you learn about the credo. You understand what it means, how decisions get made. It's all about doing the right thing. And so when you start to think about impact, when you talk about corporate values, talent is looking to marry their personal values to the right corporate values. And I think the credo is just that for J&J.
Casey, are there models in Silicon Valley? I just was talking to David Kirkpatrick, a veteran. Hope he won't take offense to that. Veteran journalist, observer. He brought up Mark Benioff and Salesforce. Are there models of tech companies that are doing it right, older companies?
I think the path is slightly different depending upon what kind of company you are. But I think one thing that we're starting to see more of, and that we try to do, is to think about not only, I think sort of traditionally you might separate your philanthropy sort of as a financial contribution or a separate piece from your core business. And I think one of the exciting things that we're starting to see with a lot of the newer tech companies that are coming up is that they're thinking about how to build that social impact into their core strengths of the product. So for us, how do we use we've got this network of homes around the world. How can we use that to help? Well, can we help provide shelter for disasters, which is a program that we launched a few years ago. How can we sort of use the product itself to be part of the conversation and part of the community in a positive way? I think that's something that sort of blending of the philanthropy with the core business is something that you're starting to see. I know Lyft has started to do that with their ride, being able to offer rides in times of need. I think that kind of model is something that is really, it's both appealing to millennials and among the reasons that make them want to come work for companies like ours, but it's also, I think, a good way of sort of incorporating social good from the beginning.
Sure, I know you don't have any kids, but if you did, what advice would you give them about the architecture of the new economy when it comes to jobs? We had this conversation last night. I've got a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, and one of them is very academic and sort of focusing on specialization. The other is very eclectic and knows nothing, but knows a lot about many different things. My sense is knowing nothing about a lot of different things is a better guarantee of work and economic survival in the future. How should we be educating the children of the future to make sure that they have, maybe not quote-unquote jobs, but at least work?
I think what we look for continuously right now, Andrew, is learning agility. That's one of the skills that we assess for continuously throughout the hiring process at J&J. If you subscribe to the notion that every single one of us is going to have to reinvent themselves every 4 years, learning agility is really the only skill you need to master. Not the only skill, depends on different jobs and different parts of the business you're in, but learning agility is a critical skill to have in order to be able to better navigate the economy of the future.
What does that mean, learning agility? Sounds as if you have to balance yourself. Can you learn that, or is it just instinctive? Is it just some people have it and some people don't?
I'm not an assessment expert per se, but it's made of a couple of different things, right? It's curiosity, it's the ability to learn, it's the attitude towards something, it's an open mind, it's collaboration, it's teamwork, it's made of multiple different aspects. But the ability to keep an open mind and to learn new things and to have a level of curiosity, I think is critical in order to be able to navigate everything that's ahead of us.
Casey, you're nodding. Is the P2P architecture of the future, is that going to help learning agility? Will everyone have to be more agile, given that the cliche is that in the past we had one job, now we've got 6, and then supposedly we'll be doing 6 every 6 weeks?
I'm not an expert in this area either, but I agree that we also look for curiosity and for ability to adapt and for ability to work in a team and problem solve. There are certain jobs certainly that are technical and require technical skills, and so we do invest a lot in making sure that we're reaching. I think we care a lot about reaching diverse populations to make sure that we're getting the right skills from a diverse array of people. But we also care a lot about being able to move quickly and change and to be resilient. Be able to fail and start over and not let that knock you down is something that I think in any startup is something that you need to sort of learn how to do because things we're in a hyper growth phase now, and I would say every 3 months, not even 6 months, things completely change in terms of how we're what we're focused on and how we're working. So you really need to be able to keep up.
Sjoerd, AI and professions. Lots of books have predicted the end of professions, law, engineering, maybe even medicine. These AI machines are supposed to do the job better than doctors or engineers or teachers or lawyers. You're obviously a particular authority in the medical field. Is expertise going to survive in the new economy?
Absolutely. I think specialization in very specific areas, absolutely. I think, AI, I think a lot of articles are scaring people about losing jobs. I think what AI is going to do in many ways, it is going to eat away parts of people's jobs. And so what's critical for companies like J&J to figure out is how do you come up with a human capital strategy where human and technology truly work together on solving some of the big problems that we're trying to solve as a company. And in addition to that, I think AI actually creates a lot of really interesting new jobs for people to focus on. And so when we start to think about, how can we help physicians or how can we help surgeons learn faster? How can we get them access to more information in the moment they need it to be able to help a patient and many times survive? The role of AI is exciting for us. We and the marriage, the blend of AI and our human capital for the organization to solve big, meaty healthcare problems is actually very exciting.
You can't create, of course, an empathy algorithm, can you?
I don't believe you. Well, I haven't seen one yet.
No, we always say that hospitality is about people and requires people, and so I think there are a lot of. It's good to remember that technology actually enables a lot of human-only and human-centric qualities that that are going to continue to be in demand in our economy. Travel and tourism is going to continue to depend on people.
So the future is humans.
Yes.
And what?
Technology and humans.
Humans and technology working together.
Yeah.
And finally, give me the best case, 30 seconds each. There's a huge debate, obviously, about the future of jobs, but 30 seconds each on why we should be optimistic about jobs in the future. Casey first.
I think what I just said, there are, I think technology can really unlock possible career paths for people that didn't exist before, especially in the sharing economy.
Yeah, I think technology, the blend of technology and human capital for organizations like J&J really allows us to unlock and address some of the big unmet medical needs that we haven't been able to address as a society yet. So when you start to think about a career in healthcare, this is one of the most exciting times to join.
You've cheered me up. I wish I was starting all over again. Thank you both. Excellent presentations.